Time to get to this.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Stepik, will you take attendance, please?
Certainly. Mr. D'Alessandro.
Here.
Mark Stepik here. Tom Donnelly. Not here?
No.
Heather Schaefer.
Here.
Joyce Brazington.
Here.
Kenny Guthrie.
Here.
Corey Bailey. Here.
Thank you. Item 2, officer elections. I need a motion, please. Dr. Brazington?
I move to appoint Corey Bailey as temporary chairperson of the Oxford Board of Education.
Support. Ms. Guthrie? Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. You can just do it from there? Oh, no, I don't need that. You just go ahead and...
Okay, so the next position is board president.
Motion that Tom Donnelly be nominated for the position of president of the 2018 calendar year.
Support. Mr. Stepik. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Discussion.
That's the first discussion.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next position is for vice president.
I move that Joyce Brazington be nominated to continue for the position of Vice President for the 2018 calendar year.
Support.
Support.
Support, Ms. Guthrie. Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Joyce, since Tom is not here, Tom is in Florida, so we are going to have Joyce continue from that point.
Jeez.
Come to that.
Careful.
Gavel for the day.
Take my water. Your glasses.
That's right.
Next position available is secretary. Need a nomination for secretary. Ms. Guthrie.
I move that Mark Stepik be nominated for the position of secretary for the 2018 calendar year.
Support. Discussion? It was
Corey.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Opposed? Motion passed. Next position is treasurer. Need a motion? Mr. D'Alessandro?
I move that Jenny Guthrie be nominated for the position of treasurer for the 2018 calendar year.
Support?
Support.
Mrs. Schaefer? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great, motion passed. Next position available is board spokesperson. We need a nomination for board spokesperson. Mr. D'Alessandro?
I move that Tom Donnelly be nominated for the position of board spokesperson for the 2018 calendar year.
Support? Ms. Guthrie? Discussion? Yes.
In the past, I think when Bill Keenest was on the board, it was separated from board president and we had a spokesperson because that was what Bill's profession was. And I don't know who was on the board at what time. We kind of switched that to kind of transition it to the president be the board spokesperson as well, just so there's one singular message coming from the board. So I just wanted to, for anybody that's new, to understand that's kind of how we come up with the board spokesperson and the president. And I think we might want to look at our bylaws moving forward and see if that can just be combined. Once you have one role, you have two.
I'll look at that, okay?
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Next position we have available is board parliamentarian. Mr. D'Alessandro.
Move that Corey Bailey be nominated for the position of board parliamentarian for the 2018 calendar year.
Do I have support? Ms. Guthrie? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. This time we need to go to the bank depositories. It's that time of the year when bank depositories and signature policies must be approved. We need the board to take the following action on the different motions below. Currently, the signature plate now bears the name of Tim Throne and Jennifer Guthrie. So I need a motion.
Actually, since Jenny was
Treasurer?
appointed as treasurer, I don't think we need to.
You still need to take action.
So need to make a motion.
So we need to take action. Mr.
I just
D'Alessandro?
can't give up that speaking part.
Got my gavel there. Mr. D'Alessandro, you have a motion?
Yes. Move that all general fund and debt retirement checks for the 2018 calendar year be listed and approved by the board. They will be signed by using the signature plate engraved with the names of Tim Throne and Jenny Guthrie.
Do I have support? Ms. Schaefer? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. We have another motion that involves check signing. Do I have someone to make the motion? Ms. Schaefer?
Move that all payroll, internal accounting, and school lunch checks, be signed for the 2018 calendar year by using the signature plate engraved with the names Tim Throne and Jenny Guthrie.
Do I have support? Corey Bailey? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We now need to look at board committees. The first committee we need to establish is the Board of Education Policy Committee, and we traditionally have 2 members on that committee. Do I have a motion to appoint 2 board members to that Board of Education Policy Committee? Can we move to discussion just for a moment, so we don't have a motion right now? We can discuss who would be interested in serving in that position. Heather, you serve in that position right now? Would you be
I am.
interested in continuing in that role?
I would.
Okay, and who serves with you right now?
Tom.
Okay. Does the board feel like there could be a conflict with the president being on that education policy committee? I don't, but is there any concern about him being the president and being on that committee?
I think one of the things, I don't know if there's a conflict. I just would hate to have too much on one person's
That's
plate.
what I think all the time.
Given the fact that he's close to the district, I think that's still, the amount of time on one person would be a little bit much.
Is there anyone else willing to serve on that committee? It's a tough committee. It meets quite regularly.
It does.
Corey, would you be interested in
I would.
possibly serving? Okay, so we have people interested now. So besides Heather and Corey, could someone make a motion?
Sure.
Mr. D'Alessandro?
Move to appoint Heather Schaefer and Corey Bailey to the Board of Education Policy Committee.
Support?
I support.
Ms. Guthrie? Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. The next committee is the Oakland Schools Budget Committee. Do we have a motion for the Oakland Schools Budget Committee? Mr. D'Alessandro?
Move to appoint Jenny Guthrie to the Oakland Schools Budget Committee.
Support? Mr. Stefan? Discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. The next committee is the OCSBA Legislative Committee. Pat, who currently serves in that role now?
We've always appointed somebody as needed.
Okay.
So probably somebody
who's going to be going to conference then.
Okay, all right. I'd like to make a motion to move to appoint Mark Stefik to the OCSBA Legislative Committee. Mrs. Guthrie supports. Is there discussion?
Mark, is that,
Would you be willing to serve? Sure. Thank you.
that's always a good question to ask.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, more discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were going to support. I'm sorry.
It's okay, Dan. So at this point, we have, we once again just sort of repeat who, I made the initial motion, and it was supported by Jenny Guthrie. We've had our discussion. This time we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we're at number 5. We're looking at changes to the board agenda.
None.
There are no changes. At this point, we're moving to the consent agenda. Looking at the minutes of December 19, 2017. Mr. DeSandro, could I have a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support? Mr. Stefik? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Motion carries. At this time, we're going to move to prearranged requests to address the board.
None.
Is there any this evening? There's no prearranged request to address the board. We are now moving to Board of Education matters. The first item on the agenda is Superintendent Evaluation Instrument. Do we know who put that on the agenda? Mr. Throne, can you speak to that?
So annually, the Board of Education needs to elect what instrument they're going to use. For the last 3 years, I think, we've used the MASB tool. And so really, it's your time to discuss whether you want to continue using the tool that you used last year or if you want to go in a different direction. But that's really what it's about.
Any discussion? Mr. DeSandro?
I think over the last couple of years, we've really fine-tuned our not only the evaluation tool that we've used, but the process in which we evaluate the superintendent, and I believe that we should continue with the tool that we have. It's something that's been presented by the state, as the State Board of Education. That's their tool. We've gone over it very, very well as a group, and I think it's something we should continue to use.
Any more thoughts? Ms. Guthrie?
I second that because I believe it's comprehensive, and I think that there's an opportunity to look at the superintendent position objectively with that tool, and not just by person. So I think that should be important to share to not just our board members, but our constituency, because I feel like it's important to know that we don't just look at Tim as a person. As you know, performance reviews can feel like they're personal. I mean, they are personal, but like they're, it's not just great job, Tim. It's very much about what we want the superintendent to be, and we welcome the input of the community on that, and this tool allows for evidence from the superintendent, and it allows for incorporating ideas and thoughts that are shared with us potentially about how the superintendent is doing. So I agree.
Any consenting thoughts or thoughts that disagree with?
I agree.
Are there any thoughts?
No, I also feel like we put a lot of time and effort into being trained on how to use the tool appropriately, and that leads to success. Also, being able to work together effectively and be on the same page on how to use the tool.
So I think we're in agreement. We'd like to go ahead and continue using that superintendent evaluation
Do we
instrument.
need a motion for that?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
Okay. As I look at item B, is the Board of Education Code of Ethics document. In our packet this week, the document that we all signed last year when we came together as a board for the first time, it speaks to our commitment to be trustworthy, to support the educational mission, to be responsible, to commit to the profession of being on a board, to agree to serve others above self. There was also just the desire that all of us sort of be accountable to each other through this code of ethics. Does anyone have any discussion where they would like to make any changes to this code of ethics? Or are we all comfortable moving forward with the same code of ethics? I'm comfortable with it. Corey, Mr. Daly? Ms. Guthrie?
I am absolutely comfortable with that. I do feel like it represents core values that we try to maintain.
Mr. DeLisandro?
This was we made changes to this, what was it, last year, Pat? From our previous, so there has been a change just as recent as last year, if I'm correct. So I'm very comfortable with it.
Good. Mr. Stefan?
I'm good.
Good. Mr. Sugar? Good. Okay, so we are in agreement that we're going to continue that Board of Education Code of Ethics document. I know that, Pat, I don't know if we have to all sign again for this year, since we all signed already last year. But it's whatever you feel we need to do, but if you bring a copy next time, that'd be great, we'll all sign that. Thank you. At this time, Superintendent Throne's going to address the presentation and proposal for the Lighthouse Connections Academy.
Yes, so earlier today, I had the opportunity to email you the rough draft of the application in regards to our Lighthouse Connections Academy proposal. And tonight, Dr. Hutchinson is going to lead our presentation. She will introduce the rest of the people that are with her tonight, and then I'm just going to jump in, whenever I feel the need.
Well, I don't know where's the best. We have it presenting up here. Is it better for me to stand here?
If you could address the book up here,
Okay.
Seems awkward to have your back to the audience.
Yeah, I was just worried about. Do you guys see myself?
No,
You good?
We also have it as part of work.
Okay, got it. Okay. I am Dr. Donna Hutchison. I work with districts. I've been in online learning for over 20 years. I'm passionate about what it means for access for kids and just the opportunities. And we're proposing increasing our partnership with you through tonight's presentation. So I'm also here with Amanda J. Amanda is our Director of State Relations, and if you have any specific, she's going to share a little bit about connections about the charter school law and some opportunities if you have questions, and that's her area of expertise. And then we also have a board member, Lynn, which I'll save that and we'll introduce her in a second too. Okay, so just briefly about the proposal to create this partnership for Lighthouse Connections Academy. Pearson's been a longtime partner of Oxford, and we're grateful for that partnership. We know that through that partnership has made a difference in the lives of many kids in this community as well as in the surrounding communities. And in conversations with several of your leaders in the community, kind of talking about how could we maybe expand this innovative district in the thought of having a statewide, what could that look like? And Connections Academy has been doing this a while, and so the thought was to create this entity that then could be a partnership between three organizations: Pearson, Connections Academy, as well as the school district, and the Lighthouse Connections Academy as a charter school. So a little bit about Pearson Connections Academy. I know you partner with Pearson, but about 6 years ago, Pearson acquired Connections Academy. Connections Academy itself was founded in 2001. The focus has been on full-time virtual schools at a statewide level. So currently there's 34 full-time schools in 27 states, and that is serving almost 65,000 full-time students across the country. In addition, we've had a partnership with you guys as well as other 100+ school districts and partner programs across the country. And that's about 1,200 of them about working across the school districts across the country, the school district and partners who have partnerships in similar capacities to you. And that's serving about 340,000 students across the country. So Connections Academy, along with Pearson and its partnerships in online education, really have been doing this for a long time, and we really believe in the opportunities for students as well as just a successful track record that we've had. The Connections Academy itself is an accredited school as in itself. It goes through different types of accreditation, advanced ed at a corporate level, as well as in each of the regions across the country, each of the local schools themselves go through an accreditation process. One of the things that, and you guys mentioned earlier about your kind of commitment on values, Connections Academy in Pearson is very committed to core values of serving students. And I've been in public ed and then joined Pearson Connections about 7 years ago. And one of the things that so impressed me to join them was the commitment to values. And what it really heartened my heart when I read this quote from Advanced Ed, that noticed their commitment to student learning throughout all of their interviews and all of their communications across the organization. They heard loud and clear students, because we really believe that through working on accountability and quality, that we really are making a difference in student lives. And it was neat to see outside evaluators come in and recognize that as well. Connections Academy, as well as Pearson, have received many, many different types of awards. So it's important to point out a lot of these are curriculum, but also there's awards in teaching and learning and the professional development as well, because that's a key piece of delivering effective and quality online learning for students. And then it's also important to point out that Connections is more than just curriculum and teachers. Connections Academy schools, but it's also understanding the whole operation of virtual education. Expertise in special education, expertise in all the systems that go into place to delivering it. We all know that there's a lot more to running a school and creating great quality schools than just that all those elements have to be together and have to be done well. So you can see from that list, there's a lot of different awards that we've won and just that really focus on that quality. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to talk a little bit about the charter applications.
Good evening. What I'd like to talk to you about tonight is a little bit about the actual proposal that is being brought to the board regarding Lighthouse Connections Academy. What's being proposed is a cyber school of excellence. And we can talk a little bit about the different terminology that gets used in Michigan because it can be a little bit confusing. But a cyber school of excellence is essentially a charter school that is authorized to operate statewide and to offer virtual instruction. So what we've created is an application that's based on the Michigan Department of Education's contract checklist. So when we bring an application to you, we're saying this is what we would like to see in a charter contract. And we wanted to make sure that this was in compliance with everything that the Michigan Department of Education wants to see as part of the process. If you were to approve a contract, that would then go onto the Department of Education, and then they issue the school code, which I think is a little bit different. You can see here some of the categories that would be that are covered in the charter application. We describe in an introduction the student population, the culture and plan, and then we go on to some of that specific information that is required by the state. So we talked about the academy incorporation, organization, the relationship that would be between the actual school and the authorizer, which would be Oxford Community Schools. Talk a lot about the process for governing that school, the authorizer's relationship with the school, and then specific requirements that apply only to cyber schools. So as part of this application, the Lighthouse Connections Academy Board would be created. The charter contract would actually be issued to that board, and then the board would then contract with Connections to provide the services that would be the actual school and the operation of that school. So, go ahead. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the board we have proposed. We have been very blessed to have a number of educational and business leaders from across the state volunteer to serve on this board. We have here with us tonight Erin Aronoff. She has graciously volunteered to be on the board. She is an Oakland County resident. She has been an advocate for education and increasing options for parents and families for many, many years. We also have, as you can see, Jenna Gregg, who's a policy leader. We have Tony Mediate, he's a business leader who has worked he's currently CEO of a nursing college. Dr. Carrie Lynn Rice, who has spent her entire career researching and working with virtual learning. And then Liz Rowe, who is also an area resident and again has spent a lot of years working for education innovation and on behalf of families.
Lynn, I don't know if you want to say
I
it.
just want to thank you for allowing us to present tonight and for welcoming us.
So why is this a good partnership? What is it about Oxford Community Schools and Lighthouse Connections Academy that make this the right partnership? So we want to have a full-time program that's able to serve students across the state. Even with district programs, even with other virtual schools currently being offered, there's still unmet need in Michigan. Oxford is an extremely innovative district. They have a vision that we think can go beyond just the Oxford community and can serve students statewide. In fact, that's a lot of the reason behind the name Lighthouse. Taking that vision that's originating here in Oxford and then having that go shine forth across the entire state. As Donna mentioned before, Connections has a history of success, and we want to work together to implement these high academic standards to make sure that families are being served in virtual education, provide high quality virtual education, no matter where they reside within the state of Michigan. One of the benefits of having a school like this in Oxford is that more creation of jobs for teachers. We will have a facility center where teachers can come and work together and collaborate. It also spreads that Oxford message out across the entire state, as I mentioned before. This is a district that is doing really different things and has made a commitment to virtual learning, and there's an opportunity now to take that and be kind of a leader across the state and show how you can take this vision and implement it. All right. So just to kind of follow up on what I just said, one of the things that we've noticed is that in your strategic process update, you've identified flexible systems and 21st century tools and resources as key components to improving your district. And this is just another way that we can go forth and demonstrate that. There's already a successful partnership going on to provide these virtual solutions to families. It's working out very well, but there's still more opportunity. As youth experience success, we can continue to grow that success and share it with others. So again, I think, as I keep saying, it's just that statewide partnership. All right, I'm going to get into kind of the nuts and bolts of charter schools in Michigan. So there's a lot of vocabulary that's very unique to Michigan. So just essentially, a cyber school is a public charter school. They're authorized under Section 6E of the school code, which is the same section with schools of excellence. And that only matters in that there's another section that authorizes PSAs, public school academies. So a lot of times when you hear about charter schools in Michigan, you think PSAs, public school academies. And in fact, a lot of times, even from the Department of Ed or from other players in virtual learning, you will hear them say cyber PSAs. So don't get caught up on the vernacular. It's technically a cyber school of excellence, but PSA, schools of excellence, cyber schools of excellence are all just different terms within the code to say a charter school. So districts can authorize one cyber school of excellence. So if, since you have not authorized one before, you're eligible to authorize one. These schools are publicly funded under the State School Act. They receive foundation allowance and then are also eligible for other types of federal funding. you will see cyber schools of excellence that are authorized by local districts, some are authorized by ISDs, Bay Path Community College authorizes, and then there's also several universities that are authorizing a cyber school of excellence. We're subject to all the state charter school laws and all the state and federal laws pertaining to education as a public institution. We have the same academic accountability system. And then it's the main difference between this and another school, being a charter school, is that the school is actually organized as a nonprofit. It's governed by a board, and that would be the main difference.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And I don't know who this is directed towards, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask it. What board governs this partnership? Is it your board or this board?
Yeah, let me kind of explain that a little bit. So there's kind of a three-part relationship. So the Oxford schools would be the authorizer.
Okay.
They would authorize a charter contract that would basically give that nonprofit board the authority to authorize a school. As an authorizer, you maintain oversight over the actual school itself. So they maintain accountability to you to meet out the guidelines that are in that charter contract, and then also to make sure that they're compliant with state and federal law. So it's, there's the board running the school, but there is also that accountability to you as the authorizer to make sure that they are running that school effectively, efficiently, and in compliance.
Okay, and a follow-up to that. Students that are enrolled in the school, they follow our board policy or that, and I think it's important for us to understand the relationship that we're getting, where the lines are, and where the separation is.
The Lighthouse Connections Academy would have their own board policies that would be in compliance with the contract.
And then that board would hire an administrative team to handle that as well. So it wouldn't fall under any of our workload of our current administrative team or our current principal or director at our virtual.
It would all be through that board. They would do the hiring and contracting with Connections to provide those educational services.
Great.
You mentioned that you would have like a facility. Would that be in Oxford? Would that be somewhere else? Where would that facility be where teachers are going to come together that you mentioned?
That's something that would be probably worked out in the contract phase. I think as we've initially kind of conceptualized, it would be located in Oxford, but again, that would be something that would be negotiated within the actual contract.
Okay. Do you see this impacting our own K-12 kids or the kids who are currently enrolled through OVA?
I can let Superintendent Throne address that as well, but I will say that, really looking at different populations, because this is statewide, it's going to be attracting students from across the state. And then there might also be students perhaps within the district who, for whatever reason, may not see that program as an option and may want to come into this program. But it's really kind of looking at two separate populations.
Yeah, my question, I don't want to see the competition between,
Yeah.
for a child, Lighthouse versus OVA versus our own traditional high school.
Yeah.
So I just need to sort of see how that would work.
So I think exactly was said. Is there a possibility that a current OVA student could say, you know what, OVA is just not working out for me, I want to apply to Lighthouse? Absolutely, that could happen. Just like today with some of the other state charters, could some of those kids, if they're within our contiguous counties, apply to OVA? Absolutely. So there is that possibility. I personally think that it's a separate market. So one of the biggest benefits that I saw in pursuing this path was that as great as OVA has become, we want OVA to continue to get better. There's not a lot of other virtual academies where we can call up and say, how are you guys doing this? How are you doing that? What's worked? What hasn't worked? And so one of the biggest benefits I see to this is us being able to share with Lighthouse those lessons we've learned, what's worked, at the same time, them providing some feedback for us as far as maybe some different ways that we can look at doing things. And so, OVA today, and I don't want to speak for Janet since she just happens to be here tonight, but many of our students in OVA start out with, I'll say, a part-time enrollment in OVA. A lot of times, there may be just a homeschool kid or a school of choice kid who just wants to take a couple of courses just to get their feet wet and see if they like it. And many of them grow into full-time students. Where this is different, why I think it's a different target market, Lighthouse is since they're going for those students all across the state, these would be full-time virtual students. They're not students who are saying, hey, I want to use your drop-in lab in Oxford. That's not possible if the kid's applying and she lives in Cadillac. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And so just for those reasons, I think that while there's a lot of similarities, at the same time, 100%, if not 100%, close to it for the potential market of the Lighthouse student customer. Those are students who, for whatever reasons, throughout the state of Michigan have determined that their current educational option is not working and they want a full-time experience and they would be choosing Lighthouse. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's sort of how I see it. Is there a potential for crossover? Yes. Do I think that there's a huge potential or we'd see a ton of kids? No, I don't. I just don't see that.
One of the highlights you mentioned was to create teacher jobs in the area. We're experiencing a teacher shortage where 60% of our teacher colleges are shrinking because there's not enough people going into the profession. How do you recruit staff, pay your employees?
I'm going to let Donna.
Well, I think the whole idea of teacher jobs in the area is something that, I think in the contract negotiations, the goal is to put it somewhere in the community. But what's neat about being a virtual school is you're going to have teachers here, but you also would have teachers statewide. So you might not be able to find a Chinese teacher here in this county, but there's probably a really good one who's statewide and virtual. Maybe you do. But you know what I'm getting at is like there's those hard to fill areas. Math and science being, two areas specifically that sometimes are very hard to fill, but being able to draw upon the state and being able for them to work remotely, because there's a lot of times with the full-time schools, there's field trips and activities that are face-to-face, so having more folks across the state allows more of those types of activities to happen across the state, not just in one locale. So I envision there'll be some teachers here, and some teachers across the state as it continues to grow and expand. This is a large state, so you're going to want to do that.
Would your teachers be part of our union leadership, union contracts, or would that all be negotiated with Lighthouse?
My understanding is the charter school will be separate.
Yes.
Mr. DeSandro?
Thank you. When it comes to athletics, they enroll in the charter school, and they're in, let's use Tim's example of Cadillac. Are they eligible to play a sport in their area that they live, or would they have to participate in Oxford athletics? I don't think we're going to have a big population, but with everything that's going on with transferring and this and that, and they might just say, hey, I don't know if that's Is that a big issue?
They would not be in Oxford. They would be participating in whatever activities they would like to participate on their own as students.
In their district that they reside. I just don't want to see a kid not being able to take advantage of an opportunity because they're so far away from, if they want to be in an extracurricular activity, they still have access to those things, because it's important. For Oxford, we have arts, athletics, and academics, and I don't want to see us take that
So
away
think
from
of it-
any student.
Maybe think of it this way. Lighthouse is its own school district.
Okay.
If a student is going there, it's their employees, their board, their policies, all of that. The relationship is that for us, ultimately, we report to our community. Those
Right.
people who vote board members in, they hold you accountable. In this case, we, as the authorizer, is the one who's holding the charter accountable. So we're almost acting as, almost like their community, in a sense. Does that help?
So the other thing I would suggest too is that usually what we have found is, 3%, 4% of a district might be interested in a full-time virtual charter school. You have your own, so that number might be less, but there still is probably a small percentage that is in another virtual charter school for whatever reason. You may want to create a policy that says, for any student that resides in our boundaries, if served by Lighthouse Connections Academy, we believe that they also have the opportunity to maybe be in sports or not. That may be something that you might be interested in doing, because obviously there's an opportunity for you to share what your district is. And, students only a lot of times enroll for a short period of time. You found it with OVA, and we found that as well, is that it's for a period of time, and they're here in this community. So I think having that close connection would be valuable, and you think about what policy you would want for your kids that happen to be enrolled in this, which would be, again, very small because you have another option. A lot of districts don't have any other options.
Where would the diploma be granted from?
The diploma would be granted from Lighthouse Charter,
Lighthouse
Connections Academy, from the charter school, which is authorized by the Oxford School District. Community schools.
Any other questions? I know that Dan had asked. Anything else that you're thinking of right now? Mr. Stubbs? Things to ponder. Tim, anything you wanted to add?
I would just add, obviously, we'll continue to follow MHSAA rules and bylaws. And so today, if you're not attending that school, you can't play for somebody else's team. So, that's not an option, right? So none of that crossover would happen. I think the other thing that I want to say loud and clear, and maybe this is a good point to do it, is that like many of our other areas that we've tried to create and innovate in, we haven't been down this path before. So you guys are asking a lot of really good questions. Sometimes we're not going to know the answer. Sometimes we're going to get months down the road and say, oh, man, you know what? Boy, we learned this. We probably should have done this. Or, you know what? Maybe we need to make a board policy on this to help protect the school district later on. And we simply just don't know today. I just want to reiterate that, and that, yeah, that's just a part of trying to grow new programs and create new things. We're gonna make some mistakes, but this will just be an ongoing process, an ongoing learning opportunity for us. And so keep asking all those great questions, because I've already just thought of a couple other questions that I hadn't thought of before, just listening to you guys tonight. So I'll stop there.
A couple follow-up questions. You have 34 full-time online partner schools. Are there any of those schools located in Michigan?
Yes, we currently partner with Michigan Connections Academy and Great Lakes Cyber Academy. in the state of Michigan. And we're real excited about this Lighthouse Connections Academy because we believe there's a lot of unmet need that Amanda mentioned earlier. Those two schools, some of them have some CAPS involved in them, as well as some year-round, some different philosophies. This one will be the full spectrum of the K through 12. No grade spans or caps are involved in it, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for expanding that need here in Michigan.
Would it be possible for you to provide Tim with some of the names of those districts in Michigan, like who holds a charter for
Yeah.
those two schools, just so we could possibly do some
And we can
investigative
give,
work? on
I
them?
think Tim and I talked a little bit about like the difference with authorizers. Both of those are authorized through universities, but I think probably a better kind of partnership that we're proposing is a district partnership. So for us to provide you with some names across the country of some district superintendents that you can reach out to maybe talk to them directly, that would be more like this school.
Anything else? Mr. Stepek?
How does the funding work?
Okay. So, with the funding, there. Yeah.
Was that what we were getting to?
No. That's perfect.
So with the funding, once you get a school code, you are eligible, of course, for funding from the state. And it is foundation allowance, and that is the lesser of either the state minimum or the district foundation allowance. The authorizer is going to be the fiscal agent for the school. So that means that the funds would flow to the school through the authorizer. We have talked to the superintendent about how that would work. Typically, it's just a very straightforward process where the funds come in, the funds go out. There aren't onerous accounting procedures that are put upon the fiscal agent. That would be an agreement that's worked out in the contract phase between Oxford and Lighthouse, how that exact arrangement would work. But the actual sort of accountability is really with Lighthouse and the state, and not necessarily from the fiscal agent.
So I think this is just an introductory presentation. There's going to be a lot of work done by the superintendent, and more details forthcoming. This is just more like an FYI that we're pursuing, but we're not authorizing anything at this point.
Oh, correct. No.
No, just information. Anything else, Mrs. Becker?
Thank you. One question I have is about the International Baccalaureate program that we value in our district and that we teach across grades and have as part of our curriculum. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about whether or not International Baccalaureate is represented in any of the curriculum.
Connections Academy does not do International Baccalaureate. They do the College Board and the SAT. What am I looking for? Thank you. So that's what we focus on. We found that has more of a national impact. IB sometimes can be more of a local thing, but I think that's another distinction that you have, that this school is offering a different option.
So it's not an option to do, like, with partnership, I keep thinking, how can that partnership be reinforced and be made strong if there was a partnership? And I think that evolves around what we have in common as well as what we bring that's new to each other, right? So I guess I'm wondering as well, in addition to the IB question, is whether or not there's opportunity for development there and consideration there, is have you thought about having partners represented on your board, or in a different capacity, maybe their own separate groups, so that there's interaction between the partners, opportunity to discuss value adds, changes, that kind of thing?
A couple of things. I think one of the things that Superintendent Throne and I talked about, some of our district partners with the school leader, integrate that school leader in district types of opportunities. So there is that collaboration. On the curriculum end, we are very much interested in making sure that we have feedback from all of our different partnerships, and we're actually working on a more robust method of getting feedback and kind of a smaller group opportunities to be able to provide some of that input of, is IB something that could be of interest, and then being able to do the research accordingly to make sure that happens. So I think there's both opportunities.
Thank you. And I appreciate that you're here. I do. That's great information.
Starting off, thanks for being here. Dr. Hutchinson and Ms. J. Mr. Bailey?
One other question, kind of going with what Mark asked. Because this is a separate entity, how are we going to keep this, especially in the public's eye? Because you know the comment's going to be another program that's taking away from our current students. How can we ensure that resources from Oxford aren't going to be funding this and those topics are going to be coming up?
Great.
You know they're going to.
Great question, and I think, one, we just have to be 100% transparent. This is a totally separate entity. They've got their own board, they're doing their own thing. Yes, we are the authorizer. Yes, there is that relationship, but yeah, I think we have to be just really clear and articulate what we, as an authorizer, what we're legally required to do versus what we can't do. There's a whole bunch of things that you can't do as an authorizer. And so I think it's an opportunity to help educate our community and bring them along with us.
Well, and I think one of the things, because we've been doing this since 2001, our expertise is kind of a lot of the operations end, as well as what it makes to make effective full-time virtual that's statewide. Like, how do you stay testing statewide, right? We have experience with our partners across the country with Connections Academy branded schools. How do you do that? How do you rent the facilities? How do you get the computers there? How do you do state testing? I mean, there's a lot of just operational logistics in that's our job. That's why they're going to partner with us to help do that. So that doesn't take resources away from you. There is recognition through the Charter School Act that's outlined in the charter application itself that you get an authorization fee as a percent of revenue that comes to the district as part of the statutorily outlined what that fee is. And that would help, like, as you fill your job that's on the left-hand side of that column as an authorizer just for a fiscal agent, you know, there's funds that recognize there is a little bit of that, but you know, one of the first things I said to Superintendent Throne, we don't ever want to detract from what your district's mission is. That this should bring value to your district, not take anything away.
Mr. Stecker?
Speaking to that, what's the value, what's the benefit? Why should we do this?
So those are the slides coming up.
Oh,
Let's hit those slides real quick.
Well, the slide of the value was that previous one, the one that we talked about. That one.
There you go.
Yeah, so those are all the reasons besides the authorizing fee as well. And I think the synergy between the two entities is one, the authorization fee, you know, and I think one of the things that we talked about when we met as a team, students right now that this option that are in your district that are already choosing another option out there, by you having accountability, you are then endorsing a program that says this meets our academic standards, and we want this child, you know, we're going to have this option. If they're going to choose another virtual charter in the state, we want the one that we're actually, in some ways, is ensuring the academic quality is good.
So Corey, to your point, at the end of the day, what is it that we're responsible for? So if anybody says, you know, this is taking away time from teachers, employees, whomever, really at the end of the day, our responsibilities as an authorizer is that we set the terms, the method of selection, the number of board members, some of those types of things that are included in the contract. We're setting that, but it's up to the job then of the Lighthouse board to carry that out. So it's almost like more of a high level responsibility is really our part as the authorizer. We provide general oversight. We're going to want them to provide an annual report to us. How are they doing? Just like we ask our own internal schools, okay, annually, how are we doing? How are we doing with test scores? How are we doing with all of those things that are important to us? Same thing, we'll be asking them. How are they doing? We act as the fiscal agent, and then ultimately, our board approves that application. And so really, from our standpoint, that's what's on us. Plain and simple. We just think we're gonna get some other things that's gonna help us along the way, help OVA along the way, internally help us, that are just, I'll say, additional benefits that not too many other school districts in the state of Michigan would have that benefit because they don't have a local virtual academy school. Okay?
Thank you.
Maybe we should just, for time's sake, I want to give you just a little glimpse of what the next steps are. And so tonight we've actually had a presentation. I have emailed out to you guys today about a 100-page document that contains a bunch of information. There's still a bunch of things that I'm going through. I've scheduled a meeting with the district's lawyers. There's some things that I want to follow up on our end. But basically going forward, the process is that you as a board, if you decide this is something you want to pursue, you'll have to pass a resolution saying, yep, we're going to be an authorizer, we're going to create a charter. You would ultimately approve an application. That application gets sent to the state. MDE has, I think, 30 days to approve or disapprove once they receive it. And then we start going down this road. So there's a bunch of logistical items that we need to meet, both from a timing standpoint as well as a legal standpoint. And yeah, we're trying to go in the proper order, and so that gives you at least an estimate of just sort of the next steps for us. What I would ask of you is, over the course of the next couple of weeks, look through that contract that I sent you. And tonight I put a hard copy in front of you as a sample resolution. So read through that. Is there anything that makes you uncomfortable? Do you have any additional questions? And I'd say just feel free to email me or call me between now and then. Don't feel like you can't ask a question or raise a concern or anything until our next board meeting. If something comes up or you got an idea, please feel free to contact me.
Schaefer?
I guess, and I don't want to sound like negative, and I appreciate the presentation. I think this would be an opportunity for a lot of people, but I feel, and I guess I'm getting the feeling that it's more of it's competitive to our OVA program. And I don't know if our community would swallow that well. I guess I'm very concerned. I want to hear from Janet. I would want to hear not just them or even your necessarily output. I would want to know from OVA specifically, Janet specifically too, is this something you're comfortable with? Do you feel like this is going to help you develop as a principal and as an administrator over there? We're real big on making those people feel like they are Oxford-seated kids. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I was over by there, I was just walking through the complex, and the teacher was walking in and put her arm, Mrs. Harvell was, hey, and the mom was, hey, why she was pulling out. I mean, there's a lot going on, a lot that has been created with our OVA program, and I just want to make sure that that is a very secure relationship, and that this is not competing with that at all.
So we can, certainly I'll talk with Janet,
Okay.
we can put something together. I guess what I would say right now is there are state charters that exist today, that have existed for the last number of years. If we currently have people in OVA that aren't happy or that we're afraid would jump someplace else, they can do that tomorrow and we can't stop them. But it's with a different charter that we have absolutely nothing to do with.
But OVA's not a charter school.
No, not OVA. I'm saying there are other state charters,
Okay.
cyber charters out there today.
Cyber charters, okay.
That are beyond.
And so,
That we're competing with, is what you're saying.
absolutely.
Okay.
And so if our existing student, whether that's a traditional Oxford seated student or an OVA student, if that student or family wants to say, you know what, OVA's just not cutting it and we're gonna jump over, they have numerous options that they can jump to today. Nothing's stopping them from doing that.
Okay.
Mr. DiLisandro?
So as I sit and I listen and I kind of think about this and I understand where everybody's coming from, but maybe to kind of put a bow on it, exactly what Tim is saying, this would be it would be like if Clarkston started their own virtual academy, Lake Orion started their own virtual academy, Lapeer started their own virtual academy. Now our students have a choice to go somewhere else. This is providing us, if a student decides that they want to go outside of OVA, we have a supplement to that. But from our perspective, how I see this looking, it's giving us the opportunity to build our brand. Much like what you have done over the past 16, 17 years, you've built your brand as a virtual academy, one of the strongest in the state. You hear a lot of advertisements on the radio for this virtual academy, that virtual academy, K-12, New State of Michigan. This is now building the Oxford brand, not our virtual academies brand, but our district brand, our Team O. This is really what this is. It's partnering with them to be Team O outside of Oakland County. That's what this is going to give us the opportunity. So, although I understand where, as I'm first going through this, and Tim and I first started to talk about this a little while ago, my thought is very much like yours. But then as you start to get an idea of the possibilities, it's building the brand of Team O in Oxford outside of Oakland County. I'm just trying to, because I've had a little bit of time to think this through, and this is kind of new to everybody else. So it's something to think about. I mean, these are great questions, and this is why we're here, is to ask the questions, and it's why they're here to provide the answers. And all great thoughts. So.
And one of the things I've said all along is we wouldn't do you any service if we hurt your program and help us. Because we're partnered with you over here as well. So our job is to have both be successful. The other thing that we did talk about currently, if they called Michigan Connections Academy and one of your students in your district saw the ad on television, they would call the 1-800 number and they would not get the option. By partnering with us, if they're in the zip code finder for your district, they would actually get both options. Have you looked at OVA? And you have this option as well. So they would get both options. Currently, that does not happen. So by partnering, you would your students in your district would actually get that as an option.
Great. I think we need to wrap this room. This is just an introductory meeting, but let's have one final comment. Mrs. Guthrie, before I gavel this discussion.
I just have a request, and hopefully this goes right along the lines of that, is I think what I hear Mrs. Schaefer, and I hear some concern about the shadowing of OVA, and I just addressed that really well. But what would really help me is really a good visual, a strategy, like a Venn diagram or something that shows how they overlap and how that overlap is addressed. To maybe single out and make sure that the source of differentiation that is Oxford Virtual Academy is not threatened. I agree. I still am quite concerned that we are creating competition for our own academy because we would like to be able to provide something on a bigger scale. And I see the value in that tremendously, but I also don't think we need to do that at the risk of sunsetting our OVA. I mean, or just at least overshadowing what we have to offer. Even if a student in this zip code is offered both choices, how is that described to a student? How are the advantages, and the options described? I need more on that. As much as I appreciate what you're doing and the presentation, I think that's the challenge, I guess I'm gonna put out there.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along to item 9, Mr. Weaver, curriculum and instruction.
All right, I'll try to make this quick.
Okay.
Well, if you guys want to get smart, I can drag this out.
It's a new year, Ken.
New year, new you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I definitely leave.
No. Thank you, guys.
All right, today the Michigan State Board of Ed released the new parent dashboard. So I just kind of wanted to quickly make you aware of that if you have not seen any of the news items or Mr. Throne hadn't sent something out to you. You can go to, as a parent or as a public a citizen, or actually citizen of the United States or any place actually around the world, to myschooldata.org/parent dashboard, and you will be able to see the new parent dashboard that is out there. This is a tool developed, and we'll kind of go into that here in just a sec. All right, what is the parent dashboard? It's a parent-friendly transparency tool, shows the performance of every public school in Michigan, and it's, as they say, a new direction in accountability. And when they say that, a new direction in accountability, what they really mean is that it is an accountability piece to the public, not like something the state board is holding us accountable for. It's really just to give us, who knows that that information is out there, and we're going to want to make sure that we are doing the best that we can to make sure that that data really represents who we are as a district. So. Who created the dashboard? The Michigan Department of Ed did, along with CEPI, which is a state organization. It houses all the data and so forth that public schools supply. The State Board of Ed, parents and other stakeholders, educators as well had some input if you wanted to do so. They got together. If you kind of see in this fuzzy image over here on the right, that's kind of what it looks like. So I would encourage you to get onto My School's data and look at the parent dashboard. You can see all the districts, by the way. You don't just see your own. You can see any district in the Michigan to see how they fared on the dashboard. How does the dashboard compare to other public reports on schools? Well, first of all, this is part 1 of 3 phases. And the last slide will kind of explain what is on the dashboard really quick. And you'll see, and then you can see what parts 2 and 3 look like. It's designed for parents with input by parents, and that's important to remember. This is stuff that parents would be interested in. It is not intended for high stakes accountability use. It doesn't factor into our scorecard. We don't get a letter grade from it. We don't get a color. We don't get anything. It's just for parents to go look at and be able to shop districts and compare. I'm not really sure why they felt they needed another tool, but they did, and therefore they created this. It's not part of ESSA. It's separate from that. I think it might have been mentioned in it, but it was not part of the requirements necessarily. Like I said, it's not part of the state report card. It's not part of this actual school board and salary compensation report, but these are other things in which we're held accountable for in the school district state data and reports. It is an additional tool outside of all of those, although it is built upon data that we supply to the state. How can families use the new dashboard? They will encourage richer conversations about schools, informed decisions about schools when they're comparing districts and where to live, and they can compare school performances in all different sorts of areas. And we're going to get into that in the last slide. What is exactly shown on the parent dashboard? This is phase 1. And you can see here listed, I won't read them all, but basically it's standardized testing data, WIDA, or English Learner Progress, that students that are learning that English is their second language to them. Participation rates, attendance, graduation, staff ratio, discipline data as far as expulsions, and to what percentage of kids are presented or are expelled, and scores on the SAT and so forth. Phase 2 and 3, one of the things that I do think is valuable and unique to this is that they are going to be looking at some other factors that I think kind of give a fuller, more richer picture of what a school district is. I mean, I think that's a conversation that, you know, since I've been in this position, and even as principal, I remember seeing and participating in and hearing discussions at the board level, you know, are we more than just standardized test scores, and how much emphasis should be placed on those, and it's kind of gone back and forth, and yes, standardized test scores, and you've heard me say that many times, they are extremely important, but they're not all of what a school district is. And that's one of the things we pride ourselves in Oxford. It's also about a bunch of about opportunities and providing those opportunities in the athletics, the arts, and as well as the academics. And we have a myriad of options for kids. So to speak, a lid for every pot, I would think, almost. So, and you can see like they're going to be looking at access to fine arts, music, PE, library media specialists, that's mostly like at the elementary level, access to technology, wraparound services, which is social emotional learning type stuff, services for kids with disabilities, English learners. I mean, you can see the list right there. So it's going to be pretty comprehensive when they get it done. And so I would just encourage you, so that you can be familiar with it, to get in myschools.org and begin poking around. If you've got questions, you can obviously follow up and we can talk at that point. But that's it.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Next on the agenda is item 10, Finance and Operations. Mr. Burnham.
Good evening, everyone. The first item that I have on the agenda is just a discussion topic, and it is revolving bond proceeds that we have yet to receive. It's more of just an FYI, and wanted to talk about the fact that in total within the bond, we had set aside $1.5 million worth of purchasing for buses specifically. After Ann and the transportation staff actually got together and were reviewing what currently is the Michigan School Business Officials Bus Purchase Program, they were able to review a series of different buses, and they, through that bus purchase program, which is competitively bid, they tentatively have selected International Buses, that's the brand, through a company called Capital City, which is the dealer based out of Lansing. And so within your board pack, I included 3 different subsets or sheets of buses that they have selected. One is a 53-passenger bus, that's the one style. The other is a 65-passenger bus, and then the third is 71 passengers. And so of those different classifications, Ann and her staff have really decided that once we receive the funds, they'd like to end up actually taking delivery of these buses, and they would like 4 of the 71 passenger. They would like 6 of the 65 passenger, and they would like 2 of the 53 passenger buses. And again, these are the brand International. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. We actually have our mechanics here. Mark and Mike are both here as well. And so just in case there was questions specifically related to these buses, I wanted to have our subject matter experts here. Again, we don't have these proceeds as we discussed at our last board meeting. We're not going to really sell these bonds until late May. But the reason why we're bringing it up now is because the MSBO bus purchase program, the window of opportunity closes for ordering these buses at the end of this month, January 31st. It does indeed open up again in April, but there could be price increases associated with these specific buses. Again, these buses are competitively bid. And so we wanted to bring this forward as a discussion item tonight, and then at the next board meeting, ask you to allow us to put in a purchase order for these 12 buses. These 12 buses in total, the beauty of this is as well, is it will allow us for $1 million to purchase 12 rather than 10 buses. And so the assumption within our bond application was for 1.5 million at $100,000 a bus, only purchasing 15. So it's a beautiful thing that we're able to capture 2 more buses because of the lower cost assumed or actually seen within these competitive bids. So if there's any questions, that's pretty much all I had to say this evening. I don't know if I missed anything, everyone, but just from an operational standpoint, that's really what we were looking at. So,
Could I ask a few questions, Mrs. Guthrie?
Thank you. How does the size of those buses that we're looking at compare with current buses and potential, is there going to be a challenge introduced to route changes because of the size of the buses? Anything, can you talk a little bit about that?
well, first of all, I think a lot of our buses are already 65 passenger buses. And so the majority of what you're purchasing or proposing to purchase are 65 passengers.
The 2 53 passenger buses are special needs orthopedic buses, used typically to transport students out of district. We do have one that operates in district, but they're smaller in size, transport fewer students, but have lift operations for our wheelchair students and our medical graduate students. So they're just typically replacing buses that we currently have on board right now. The 65s, most of our fleet are 65 passengers. That's because of most of it is because of the size of our building and our hoist in order for the guys to go to work on them. We do have some 71 passengers, which we bought used, which work well in like Waterstone and the village, where we're picking up a lot of big group stops and not putting a lot of miles on them, not having them on the back roads. So that's kind of those size difference. So basically what we're looking at doing is just replacing some of the very old buses that we have now that are on the road that need to be either scrapped or sold.
So the primary issue has been mechanical in nature and not necessarily that we don't have enough room to transport a growing district. Is that true?
I'm not sure, I'm really not sure your question.
Well, like comparatively, if we have most of our buses in our fleet as 65 passenger buses, and we're getting more 71 passenger buses, I'm wondering from the standpoint of, are we challenged right now to transport the number of students that we need to transport, and is that why we're ordering more?
We started buying the 71s, one because they were offered, they were used buses that we got from other districts that we've been doing over the years anyway. And they worked well in some of our subdivisions, like Waterstone, where you're picking up a lot of students, and it was growing so fast. So that 71 is only one seat longer, but sometimes it makes a big difference. You know, it's 2 seats basically. It's 2 additional seats, yes.
Gotcha.
But it makes a big difference in some areas where you're picking up a lot of group stops. You know, a lot of large numbers of group stops. So maybe I can put one less bus in there because of those additional seats, or not having to put an additional bus in there because I've got 4 buses in Waterstone that have that 71 capacity.
That's what I was looking for, was like economic comparison.
Yeah. So and basically, part of that is we're looking to replace some of the older 65s that we have and to replace some of the older 71s, because we bought 3 different series of 71s. We have 3 different age groups of 71s. So we've got some of the 71 passengers that are getting older, and we don't want to replace them with 65 passengers and downsize. We want to be able to stay with the 71 passenger buses that we have now.
So anticipating.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And possibly even be able to add a couple more in there. Some of our restrictions with that is the guys, they can't use the hoist to do like oil changes or to repair work, so they're having to do it on the floor in the garage. So fit in the garage, they just don't fit on the hoist.
Okay.
A lot of districts have gone to even larger buses, like you see the big pushers or transit buses that Lake Orion has that are like 85 passengers. Our building just doesn't accommodate that size bus, so we can't go to the next size larger, which would maybe be a 71, or the transit buses, the 84 or 85s.
Anything else? Mr. Bailey?
Actually, a couple of questions. One was in regards to the hoist. What are we going to be doing as far as doing these repairs? Are we looking at independent hoists that will lift those? Are these under warranty for such a period of time where we're not going to need this for 2-3 years down the road?
The warranty on these buses is 5 years for brand new buses.
Okay.
And since these buses are no larger than our current fleet overall, we can service these buses after warranty. So, if that answers your question.
What kind of diagnostic tools and things are we going to need down the road for, because I'm assuming these are different engines, different types.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll let the mechanics answer that question.
I have negotiated to get the diagnostic stuff along with the deal.
Okay.
We buy as many buses, he's going to give us the programs to put in our computer and diagnose them. What it'd be like. And we can work on them on the floor, it's just a little more cumbersome and maybe a little more time consuming.
It's a lot more time consuming. I mean, those independent hoists work nice. We put them in all the NAPA buildings and.
We don't have room for them. I mean, we don't have any, to take 4 of those wheel hoists you're talking about, that we wouldn't have any place to put them when we're not using them. I mean, that's the problem we have with everything, just not enough room.
Additional questions for you, Sandra?
From a mechanical standpoint, are there any, when you have new buses and you have new programs, will there be an expense for new tools? I mean, is it similar to a car? I mean, when you buy a car from when I was growing up, you had a car from, well, a certain age. In the 80s, you had a car, but now you could work on those cars back then. You didn't need a specialty tool or anything like that. Now you get into a car, you open it up, and you've got computers running the whole thing. Or is this just very similar to the old style engines that have been in the past?
Well, I mean, I can't, but
they're not as advanced as a lot of the brand new cars are, but they are still a fuel injected system.
there's still 5 computers on it.
Yes, they still have computers on them. But for the most part, a lot of the mechanicals are stayed the same through the years. It's just you basically have your engine and transmission diagnostics, which if we can get this system, for the computers that comes with the buses, we're quite a ways ahead of the game where we can start. We learn them as they have problems, of course, because we're jumping ahead a decade and a half on a lot of these buses. So, but they haven't advanced as fast as your average car.
Thank you.
What percentage of buses will be replaced then of our total fleet with these 12 new buses?
A little bit more than 20%. So we have 50 buses currently right now.
How many?
50, I'm sorry, I said 20%. Yeah. So, we have 50 total, so this would be 12.
And Ian touched on earlier, we're going to sell what we can, and we're going to get rid of what can't be sold. Do you know how many of those can't be sold?
Part of why we're doing this now as well as getting them ordered. We'd like to have these 12 buses here and ready to roll when we start August 27th. Not be waiting on them, and a lot of times the longer you wait, you may not have those buses the first day of school. You're going to have them maybe the end of September or later into October. And that means we've got 12 buses we're going to get rid of. I mean, they're going to be gone. And the guys have got swapping of tires and just parts that they're going to take off of the buses that we're going to scrap or sell and swap out, some worn out tires or whatever we need to do, which we've been doing over the years. And you're going to need that time over the summer to do that and then put those nicer, newer, better parts on the buses that we're going to keep. And then we need to be able to get rid of those 12 buses, which would either be, we've done various things over the years. We've had a couple buses that got sold to a demolition derby group out of Kalamazoo. We've just scrapped them because we don't feel like they're good enough to auction. And we've also auctioned. We've had a couple of online auctions, and we've done one online auction, and we've also auctioned a live auction at our facility and sold buses. I think we've had a couple that went to like a rafting company up near Omer. We've also, some other facilities have taken some of our buses. So, whatever we can do to try to get some money back out of those.
When we're done with them, the parts are worth more than the bus. So we take off a couple thousand in parts and sell them for a couple thousand. I mean, they're not worth much when we're done with them.
I see a fleet of tiny homes.
Yes, they would be good for that.
I just want to say kudos to these gentlemen right here. Like, they do a fantastic job maintaining our fleet. And, the safety of these older buses, the reason why we pass inspections the way we do are because of those guys right there.
Thank you. Absolutely.
These guys do work that other technicians.
We get to thank our driver. Sometimes we don't see the two of you often. So.
Yeah, we're hiding in the back.
Okay, anything else for the purchase of 12 buses, Sam?
I'll bring that forward again at the next board meeting so that hopefully it is approved and then we can put this order in by the deadline, which is the January 31st.
Great. Item B?
Item B is the purchase of a TriCaster, which is used by our broadcasting class, part of the CTE program. This TriCaster, just for your knowledge from layman's terms, it's basically a processor. And what it's used to do is basically process photographs, video, as well as audio, and puts it together in a very nice package, state-of-the-art, so that we can obviously have full production capability within our class. The current TriCaster that we have is approximately 7 years old. To my knowledge, from what I've been told, there's some issues with the CPU, the motherboard, and it's not working. It's quite an expensive piece of equipment that is used in our broadcasting class, and we're required through the CTE program to basically update our equipment at least every 5 years, and so we're a little behind on this particular this device. So this has been budgeted. It is part of the CTE funds that we receive this year through the state, and so we are asking that the board approve this purchase for the school year. There is a $5,000 credit within this price. It's reflected within the $30,200 purchase price. They'll be giving us, as part of that, a $5,000 credit for our existing TriCaster.
Okay. There's a motion. Do I have a motion? Mr. Bailey?
I move to approve the purchase of a new TriCaster for the use in the CTE program in the amount of $30,200.
Support? Mr. Stefik? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, thank you, Mr. Barna. Mrs. Lotowski, Human Resources? Number 12, Student Services, Mrs. Sweet. Good to see you. Item 13, our Board Policy Committee has been busy at work, and so we'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve a second reading. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Jeffrey.
Move to approve a second reading of policy numbers 1439, Administrator Discipline, 3139, Staff Discipline, Professional Staff, 4139, Staff Discipline, Support Staff, 2410, Prohibition of Referral or Assistance, 1421, Criminal History Record Check, Administration, 8142, Criminal History Record Check Operations, 8321, Criminal Justice Information Security, 2221, Mandatory Courses, 2623, Student Assessment, 2414, Reproductive Health and Family Planning, 2418, Sex Education, 7540.02, Web Content, Services, and Apps.
Thank you. Support? Mr. DeLisandro? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Item 14, unscheduled audience participation. Anyone else like to speak to the board? Great. Number 15, there's scheduled activities for us to be aware of. They're listed there. Mr. Thorne, any clarification?
Not needed.
Number 17, final board comments. And we'll shake it up a little bit. I'll start. And Dan usually does the last. But I'll go ahead and start and just thank Dan for his 2 years of service serving on the board. It is not an easy position. We all work as trustees and different officers on the board, but the board president really carries just a huge responsibility. So on behalf of the entire board and the community, thank you for serving, Dan.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Okay, Corey.
Again, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Tim, for the presentation for the new opportunity with the charter. Pretty excited. I think that's something good to look at. Again, I share the concerns that, we don't compete against our own OVA. I mean, we've got a really, really good program there. And as long as that is not jeopardized at all, I think this is a good opportunity to look at.
Thank you. Mrs. Guthrie?
I echo that. I echo thanks to Dan for his hard work and good guidance. And I'm excited about this presentation too. I want to thank Dr. Hutchison and Mrs. J and Lynn, and especially Tim for bringing this to us as an opportunity. Look forward to a future discussion. Thanks for the other presentations too. Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Sam.
Mr. DiSandro?
Well, I want to thank you all for coming and presenting to us this information for the Lighthouse Connection Academy. Again, it's a testament to Tim and central office on how we think outside the box. Things in the state change, funding changes, everything moves, so we have to find a way to provide opportunities for our students. And by extending our brand outside of Oxford, I understand the concern. I really, really do. But look at it this way. When you grew up in this community, you choose Oxford Virtual Academy because you want to be a Wildcat. And that's what we're bringing out to everybody else. The opportunity to be an Oxford Wildcat in some way, shape, or form. I think we will have a very, very small amount of people that choose something other than what Janet and Mark provide. So, as far as my position, I have been honored to serve as president. It's a humbling thing. It really is. You are some great people. You really are. You guys have stepped up. You've asked great questions today. I mean, that's what you strive for. You strive for people to ask questions, not because they just want to hear themselves talk, but because they want to do what's right for the community and for this district. It's always about the district first. The district is more important than any of us, anybody that we have out there, and I'm real confident that you guys continue, and this board will continue to do a great job. Ken, thanks for the presentation, and you know what? It's just the right length of time. And just so you know, Nancy can find anybody. She can find any employee that is ever needed. So we've got, Nancy does a great job. So thanks everybody, I appreciate it. And thank you for your being a great teammate.
Thank you. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes, and I want to thank Dan too. I think I called him privately, but so he knows how I feel. But I do think that he has been in a different situation than most of us, kind of like coming out of the old school and coming into the new. And I think he has grown a lot, and I've been honored to serve with him. So I'm proud of him and happy that his professional life is growing too. So. And one thing I wanted to add to the scheduled activities, the Oxford Middle School's Fantastic Mr. Fox is next week. It's Thursday and Friday if anybody doesn't have anything to do. It's 7:01 here at the Performing Arts Center. So I'll be there, but it's really cute. The middle schoolers, it's kind of an interesting age group. They're really kind of coming out of their shell at that age, so that's those plays are always good, so. And thank you for the presentation, I appreciate it, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Schaefer. Mr. Steppen?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say Happy New Year to everybody. And similarly, and everybody said it, thanks to Dan, I think you just did a phenomenal job as president during some really tough times and some tough things to negotiate. And you just handled it very, very, very well. And so I'm very appreciative of that. You guys know, and I've talked about this a lot, that I go to a lot of the seminars and I talk to other school board members around the state, and I get a lot of information that way that, you know, makes me feel good when I come back home, because we're always ahead in Oxford. We're ahead of the curve that is tearing down the state. And every conversation in every classroom, in every seminar that I'm in, Pat knows this too, because she's been to a lot, is what are we going to close next? What program are we going to close next? What school are we going to close next? And how are we going to talk to the parents about that? And I'm in all these discussions, and I'm with my tenure on the board, we never had that discussion. And it's because of the out-of-the-box thinking that our management team has. And I don't fully have a grasp on what you guys are talking about how that's going to work, but I'm really excited to learn about it, so that when I go to these conferences, I got something else to talk about. It sounds really exciting. I'll be honest with you, I don't have a grasp on it yet, of how it can function, and I'm not sure really any of us do. But I know. Apparently, I had to leave early today to go see my daughter race up at Mount Holly, so I didn't get the pleasure of that email. But I will certainly look at it and review it. So I'm really excited about that. And it's just, you know, over the years, when all these other schools were talking about, oh, well, you know, the birth rate's going down, so our school districts are going to go down. And somehow we don't talk about that in Oxford. And I'm real excited to be a part of that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 18, other, Mr. Throne.
I'd just like to tell the board this is Board Appreciation Month. So I will send you a reminder, but before our meeting in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a little dinner for appreciation. So I'm saying this to everybody out there, you got, you know, a couple of weeks left that you can show your board appreciation. Thank you again to our guests tonight, and I look forward working with the board to figure out how all this will fit with Oxford and where we go. You know, I think about the email that Mark had sent out in regards to the comments made by one of the auto executives in how our world is going to change in the next 10, 15 years. And I'm telling you, I kept coming back to how's education going to keep continuing to evolve and look 10 years from now, 15 years from now, even with all the discussion of what's going on down at Clarkston and Dakota with the basketball player issue and all that kind of stuff. I'm telling you, walls are coming down and mobility is going up, and the rules and laws and how education is done today is just going to look a lot different 10 or 15 years from now. And I'm glad I work for school districts who's not afraid to put their toes in the water and try and figure things out to get prepared for that and not always be in reactive mode. So I look forward to the days ahead of doing that. And lastly, just a notification, I'll be at a superintendent's conference the next 3 days. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.